In April at Sepang, moved to Chang International Circuit in Thailand in May, then on to a double-header in Japan, Suzuka in June, Fuji Speedway in July, Yongam in Korea at the start of August, and here the finale, the last weekend of our season, the last weekend of September. Beautiful, perfect weather conditions for going racing here at the Shanghai International Circuit. Never seen it looking so good. My name is Bruce Jones and I'm joined in the commentary box by Steve Dawson. And qualifying is upon us. GT4 runners out first, and the stage is set for them, Steve.
Yeah, good afternoon, Bruce. As you, lovely little summary of the season so far. I must say, probably about the most comfortable weather conditions we've had in the entire year. Lovely sunny day, not too humid, not too hot. Just lovely for everybody involved. Yes,
the start of autumn, and now we've got a twist. We know that Takayuki Kinoshita and Tsunaka Jukuchu are going to have already got the GT4 championship title in their pocket. However, this weekend they want to work out which of them is going to be champion. They've shared a car all season and now they've decided to do something very different. Number 81 and 82 BMW M4s are entered by BMW Team Studio with one driver in each. They've decided they're going to have a shootout between them, not just in qualifying, but in the race. We'll come on to the permutations in the race in a minute. I think it's a fantastic thing, Steve. Bragging rights they can have. Teammates they may be, but now here the finale is set for them. And number 81 coming out, that's Takayuki Kinoshita. Let's work out which of them is the quicker. They probably have an idea already, because of course they've shared a car, so every practice session, every qualifying session through the course of races, they can look at their facts and stats and work out who's quick, where, who's slow, where, whatever. But now they've decided to do the honourable thing, and it's great to see. Here's Jukuchu coming out onto the circuit. They're going to have a shootout at the final round.
Yeah, nothing like a shootout, is there? They've been teammates all year long, but just to see who's the better for this year, it'll be lovely to give them both the opportunity to do that. That means they'll both be involved in both of these little qualifying sessions, and yeah, that'll be a really good guide as to how this weekend's going to go. First race later today, second race on Sunday.
So between them, they've scored 6 wins across the 10 races so far, 5 rounds, the 10 races, so right on the sharp end. But one thing that always happens, it's a great feature of Blancpaing GT World Challenge racing around the world, is success penalties. They don't get any weight added to their cars, but if you win a race, at the following race, you have to serve 15 seconds extra at the mandatory pit stop. Now, of course, when it comes to the pit stop, the drivers aren't handing over to anybody, but because they're running as singletons, they're going to have to get out of the car as though there's a driver change, serve an extra 7 seconds in which they have to be standing behind the white line, the entrance to the garage. When that 7 seconds is served, they can go back to the car, get strapped back in again, and go out. So they're going to be 22 seconds at a standstill. Now, we know they're good, but to make up 22 seconds in a 1-hour race is going to be very difficult indeed. The driver who's been setting the pace in GT4 so far has been Ringo Chong, fastest in both of the sessions so far at this race meeting for his Team iRace.win Mercedes outfit. That's car number 111 out on the circuit. Still waiting for the first flying lap. It's a long lap. Should be the wrong side of 2 minutes for the drivers around. Here is Ringo Chong sharing with Setiowan Santoso. And that's, in fact, it's Setiowan in the car at the moment, and Ringo will take over in the second. Each of these categories, GT3 and GT4, have 2 qualifying sessions, and Ringo will go out in the second session. But just to finish the point I started some while ago, it's normally 15 seconds for the next race, extra in the pit stop if you win, but it's 22 for the driver, both the driver of 81 and 82. So they've separated.
In terms of these two against the rest of the field, it'll be some disadvantages they'll have to work through. But in terms of going head-to-head in this shootout, it won't mean anything at all. It's still man against man, car against car.
It's wholly equal. The only thing that's going to be unequal is whichever qualifies the better will be one position further up the grid. But if they're side-by-side on the grid, it doesn't give you the world's biggest advantage on that run down towards turn 1. But let's see. But I take my hat off to them. It's great to have another car in the championship, but it's also just great that they've decided to do it. And one thing that really strikes me about Jukuchu and Kinoshita, you get with them up on the podium, they're always just smiling and laughing, and it permutates down through the team as well. I really like BMW Team Studio because they just simply enjoy their racing. They came into this season having on the back of good results in 18, and a completely bizarre race livery for their cars. It's absolutely brilliant, but it does hurt the eyes after a while. But, you know, they've really put a lot of thought into it. The biggest flags waving here on this Friday morning at the circuit. They've moved in, but were for their team in the grandstand, the giant grandstands opposite the pits. And certainly when we raced at Suzuka and then Fuji, you really could feel the presence. Here, this is 82, this is Chikuchu, waiting for those flying laps to come in. In fact, only Jean-Marc Merlin has put one in so far. 2 minutes 20.5. That will be beaten, but it just emphasises how long this circuit is. But again, for these drivers, one of the features of this championship is racing on Grand Prix standard circuits, and this is the largest of all. And certainly, if ever you've been here to the Shanghai International Circuit and are lucky enough to go for a track walk, if you're here on a foggy, smoggy day and you're out at the start of the back straight, you can't even see the pit building. The pit building is the equivalent of about 10, 12 stories high. It's enormous, but you feel as though you're in another entity.
But we were talking about how lovely the day is today, and we must bring in air quality. I mean, it is super clear. As we sit in our elevated position just above the finish line, incidentally, we can see for miles lovely big developments, high-rise buildings on the horizons there. We can see for a very long way. The air quality is good today. Everything just in place for a super weekend racing.
Yeah, and I think one of the keys, I came here a very long time ago when the circuit wasn't many years old, was they put in lots of little trees, but in the intervening 12 or so years since I was last here, they've really grown up, and it's very beautifully planted. I wish more circuits around the world put in greenery among them, and we're staying out very near the circuit, 2 stops on the train or 1 hop on a little bus to get us here. And I must say the planting in the Bayin city where we're staying is very, very attractive indeed. Lots of park space, almost as much space as the drivers have out on the circuit. Who's doing well? We said it was Jean-Marc Merlin. Well, he was the first to put a flying lap in. He's now been beaten by the best part of 2 seconds, but it's neither 81 or 82 are BMW Team Studies. It's car number 11. Always goes well up and down the season. GTO racing with TTR and Brian Lee, driver from Taipei, top of the charts by 3/4 of a second from Takayuki Kinoshita. So it's 11 from 81. It's Mercedes from BMW. That is the story. And in fact, looking up and down the classes, it's all Mercedes versus BMW. The 6 cars, in fact, we should have 7 cars. No, 6 cars, I can't do the maths, in GT4, and it's a mix of the 2 BMWs from BMW Team Studi and the rest in the Mercedes. Another Mercedes has moved up as Jean-Marc Merlin put in his 2nd flying lap, the first driver to do so. He's got within 0.6 of a second of Brian Lee. Brian Lee, top of the charts, waiting to see who's going to respond the best, but it's the metallic blue number 11. I must say, I do like the livery. I bang on about it at every meeting, but it looks particularly beautiful in the sunshine here for GTO racing, and Brian Lee doing a very good job indeed. He'll hand over in the second 15-minute session to his teammate Tony Fong. Just to reiterate, 2 15-minute GT4 qualifying sessions with just 7 minutes in between them for the changeover to the second driver, or not in the case of BMW Team Studi, and 7 minutes after the second of our sessions is concluded. And that's the one that defines the grid for the second race. This first qualifying session defines the grid positions for this afternoon's race, and then we have exactly the same format for the bigger, more powerful GT3 cars.
And Kinoshita and Chikuchu will be involved in both of those sessions, seeing as they have a car each. Of course, we must keep a good note of the time between those two. At the moment, it's 1 second and 1/10 between them. As I say that, yeah, they're both at the bottom of the timesheet, though, at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, the feeling over the last 2 seasons, last season and this, is Kinoshita is generally the quicker of the pair. But you also have to observe, sometimes a driver, the advantage is much greater in qualifying. Over the course of the race, when they have to settle in, be kind to their tyres.
Yeah.
The gap comes down in terms of the difference between them. Right, 2 minutes 18.733 seconds is the fastest time. That's set by number 11. Is there going to be an improvement this time? You'd have to say almost a second's going to come off there. Down to 18.05. So good improvement. Only 0.3 quicker because Sonaka Chikuchu crossed the line just in front of him. And is a 0.3 of a second slower. But Chikuchu sort of saying, okay, I've banged in a time rather quicker than my rather faster teammate. So Takayuki Kinoshita is slowest and Chikuchu is second, but I do expect a fight back from Kinoshita. 1.5 seconds covers top 6.
Early days, so
6.
We'll see these times tumble and change dramatically in the next few moments. But Chikuchu knocked a big chunk off his time there, and he's now currently 11/10 of a second, as it were, ahead of his teammate Kinoshita, who's still at the bottom of the standings there. There's Chikuchu in your picture.
Wonderful. Must say the Mercedes just have such a great engine note. Just heard Jean-Marc Merlin. He's only fourth fastest at the moment, 1.1 seconds down on the ultimate pace, but just rumbling under the giant winged media centre that starts the pit straight. Giant pit building, even more giant grandstand opposite, and then there's another winged bridge at the far end of the circuit, which is often used for hospitality. Absolutely brilliant place to be having your coffee, glass of wine, little canapé, whatever's on offer. Can you tell I'm getting close to lunchtime? I'm feeling quite peckish all of a sudden.
Where did you find canapés? I must go
in my mind.
I see. Quite a unique setup here, isn't it? This grandstand always has been supremely impressive. And in terms of the track, that first turn after the start-finish straight is really, I think, iconic. So many apexes on that very short, very, very tight turn, and changes in elevation as well.
Well, changes in elevation are a driver's friend, also a TV director's friend, and even on TV, which naturally flattens things down, that first, well, in fact, the run from turn 1 to turn 2 at the top, and the drop down to turn 3, the really sharp left-hander, that is a real plunge. It's a shorter drop than it's twice as steep as the way up to turn 2, and if you're getting it wrong, suddenly, a bit of a mistake there out on the circuit. So Naka Jakuchu, just wondered if he's got a slight puncture. He's pulling off. I think he might have picked up a puncture. He's indicating he's just coming in. Maybe he just ran wide, but...
In he goes.
Well, OK, he seemed to be going slowly, but it might have just hit a bump, but the car seemed to be bouncing around a little bit. So he's come in from second fastest. He's a third of a second down on Brian Lee, and Brian's reporting into the pits right behind, so they're not using all of this session. I think that will be it for Sanaka Jakuchu, because he's got to recover and then hand over to himself for qualifying session number 2. He's got to give himself a good talking to, debrief himself, as if he was handing over to his regular teammate Takayuki Kinoshita, who'll have to repeat the same thing. But it's suddenly gone fairly quiet. Half of the field are now in the pit lane. In front, number 81, maybe he feels, what does it matter?
They don't seem very energised. I think they may well settle, as you say.
I think they will, because they know they've got a real fight if they're going to try and add to their victories this season. 6 so far, but they've split themselves to both have a car for this final round, and they know with that 22 seconds penalty they've got to get it spot on, so maybe actually trying to get the cars right for race pace is more their interest, providing they can make a clean start and negotiate that turn 1, 2, 3 on the opening lap.
Hard to see how Kinoshita would settle for that, though, right at the back of the track with 3 men between him and his teammate, with so much riding on this in terms of the Drivers' Championship GT4.
Maybe he likes the challenge.
Aha.
Well, fastest at the moment is the car you can see in the middle of your picture. And you can certainly, I think that's Jakuchu who's just got out, but it's number 11, GTO Racing with TTR. Their Mercedes top of the pile by 0.3 of a second from Jakuchu's number 82 BMW. Setiawan Santosa, the Indonesian racer, is third fastest at the moment, and he's got hot on his tail Jean-Marc Merlin for Craft Bamboo Racing. So suddenly it's quite busy in the pits, less busy out on the track. Just to reiterate, 2 15-minute qualifying sessions. The first one defines the grids for this afternoon's race, and just if you want to know what time that starts, it's 4:15 Chinese time this afternoon, a 1-hour race with a driver change. And we've been talking about BMW Team Studi. You can see they've got 2 cars here this weekend, and the championship, well, they're not the championship leaders, they are the champions, because nobody can get close to them on points, but they've decided to find which of them will be the overall champion in GT4 by splitting them between the 2 cars this weekend. So they're both going to race as singleton entries, and therefore they will not be doing a driver change, but they will be coming in, and because they're not doing a driver change, when it comes to their mid-race pit stop, they have to serve an extra 7 seconds at a standstill. But such is their form, and they've certainly had to fight back from a regular 15-second penalty for every race after a race win. We know they can do it, but it really is getting harder and harder, because GTO Racing are looking equally strong. They've got an extra 5 seconds at a standstill in their pit stop. But I think we'll get to that when we get to the race. The only person out on the track, Jean-Marc Merlin, got the track to himself. In fact, even when you're on the track with others, you feel on a circuit as big as this that you've got the track to yourself. But for the French veteran, enjoying his form, he's 4th fast at the moment. He's 0.8 of a second down on the ultimate pace, but he knows his GT4 was the Blancpaing Asia GT4 champion with Craft Bamboo Racing, still with them, but that was 2017. And he was 9th last year, but he missed a couple of rounds.
Doesn't look as if he'll improve upon his best time there. All yellow for all 3 sectors, so remains 4th there.
Yeah, but I think that was a wind-up lap out of the pits, and let's see, he's done the most laps of anyone. He's got 6 in the bag. Maybe, in fact, didn't make a pit call, but he's got the track to himself. The checkered flag is about to be waved. The important thing for Jean-Marc Merlin there in the number 77 Craft Bamboo Racing Mercedes is that the clock is still ticking around. He started the lap and the checkered flag will greet him at the end. Let's see what his first sector time will do. He needs to get down to about a 2 minute, no, we don't have the sector time. 40 to be competitive through the first sector. Hasn't got there yet, but as you can see, there's more activity in the pits than there is out on the track. First of the 2 GT4 sessions. It's come to a conclusion, but we have at the moment one car out on the track. And his first sector time is not fast enough to see any improvement, so he can just bring it back in. He will hand over this weekend. Number 77 will come in and hand over to Douglas Koo, Malaysian racer who's competed in the championship before, but joining him this weekend. Ever-changing lineup at Craft Bamboo Racing. Great to have more people involved in the championship. And Douglas Koo, champion in the Asian Le Mans series a couple of years ago in the CN class, which is the smallest prototype class. That was 2017, but he's dipped in and out with us since that 2017 season. Been pretty busy actually, racing the TCR class. Couldn't be more different in the Malaysian Championship this year, also racing Le Mans Cup, so he's been busy around the globe. Great to have him back on board, and he will be taking over that number 77 Craft Bamboo Racing entry. Session is over, so pole in GT4 will go to Brian Lee, the number 11 GTO Racing with TTR Mercedes, and by 0.3 of a second. That might seem a lot, 0.326 to be precise, but this, I must reiterate, is a very long lap indeed. So there are the qualifying times and positions, and it was Brian Lee, not Tony Fong. Tony Fong will do the second session in the car, and as you can see on the screen, Sanaka Jukuchu in second place and Takayuki Kinoshita will be doing the second session as well, because they are in different cars this weekend. They've both got a car from Team Studi rather than just sharing the one. So they'll be back in action, and all the others who are out there on the track, from Brian Lee to Setioan Santoso to Jean-Marc Merlin and car number 199, didn't talk about that, that's Kyo Chang, will be handing over to their teammates. But a nice, tidy job there done by Brian Lee. He's been having a very good season indeed.
So the first chapter of the story has been told. Jukuchu will start well ahead of his teammate in race 1 this afternoon, with 3 drivers between them, and these two dueling then for the Drivers' Championship in GT4. So there's your first significant piece of news. You said he might like a challenge, Kinoshita. He's got one.
I think so too, but also I just actually passed through my mind, because they're accustomed to running just the one car. They've got to have 2 crews out there to do the pit stops, unless they say you come in on lap 12 and you come in lap 13 and we'll just nip to the next garage. But again, if you've got 2 crews, does that mean that they're both as well prepared as the other? You know, you might have your friend Fred on changing the rear wheels.
Who gets the A crew, who gets the B crew? All sorts of politics going on.
It could be rocks, paper, scissors, I don't know.
Well, these rules were in place, you know, and they've taken advantage of it, and you know, great kudos to the organisers for allowing this situation to happen, because it generates a great deal of excitement for us on the final weekend of the season. I'm looking forward to this afternoon.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very, very intriguing indeed. But for GTO Racing, as we said, top in GT4 so far in this meeting. Believe it or not, Brian Lee and Tony Fong have not taken a class win yet, but with just a 5-second penalty, whereas the 2 Studi racers have got 22 seconds at a standstill. That gives them a pretty tidy advantage. So and Kia Chang and Zhou Qi, they will also be 10 seconds extra in their pit stop in the number 199 Team iRace.win Mercedes. So I would say it's looking pretty good for the GTO Racing duo, but they've got to work as a pair, not just as a singleton entry. So let's see if they're going to be the ones smiling down from the podium at the end of this afternoon. About 5:20, we'll know that. 5:15 will be the end of the race. But in this session, it was the story of the BMW M4s. I say 4s plural because BMW Team Studi entering a pair of them. And this time it's split between them. And as you can see on the track, being chased around by the GTO Racing entry. And Brian Lee and Tony Fong, I said they hadn't won this season. I didn't scurry back to last year's notes. Across 3 seasons, they have yet to take a win. That seems extraordinary. Bit of a drought. So many times one has seen them at the front of that class, particularly in races where the Team Studi entry has got a longer pit stop to serve, a 15-second extra at a standstill. But let's see, maybe this could finally be the weekend in which they take that first win. And what a way it would be to end the 3rd season of Blancpaing GT Asia Racing. And we will wait and see how that unfolds. But by 0.3 of a second and more, First advantage to Brian Lee, and now we prepare ourselves for what will follow. It might look the same cars coming out, the same sextet, but different drivers in 4 of them. And let's see where we stack up. Which of the Team Studi cars is going to be towards the front end? Which one's going to be in front when we start? This is defining the grid for Saturday's race. We're racing here Friday afternoon and Saturday.
Yes, that's confused everybody, hasn't it?
We're so accustomed.
Saturday racing.
Exactly, so accustomed to Saturday and Sunday races around the globe. But for 4 of the drivers, they can pass on their advice what the track conditions are like. And I must say, the cars on track yesterday, cars on track this morning, weather conditions, the least humid it's been. It's a really comfortable temperature, low 20s in terms of Celsius, and I've never seen the sky as clear and crisp as it is. It's not crisp, it's just clear.
It's very clear.
So we'll take that, and as Steve was pointing out, fabulous long views from our commentary box across the trees that surround the circuit to various clusters of high-rise buildings off in the distance. And right now it's warm, not uncomfortably hot, but best of all, the humidity is down even on the past couple of days, so that's always welcome for crews who are dressed. Don't forget, they are in fireproof overalls a lot of the time. The drivers, of course, they have the hottest environment of all in the cockpit of these cars, because come what may, a lot of heat gets fed back from the engine bay into the body of the car. And after competing in Malaysia, in Thailand, where the humidity was horrendous and temperature,
oppressive,
and in fact the Japanese races weren't exactly cool. And when we got to Korea, there were national heat wave warnings when we were there. This is probably the most comfortable they will have been all year, and they'll take that every time.
Just looking at the highlights there of that first session, Bruce, you know, this track is luxuriously wide. Do you think it takes a longer time for them to pick up the driver's line, given that they've got so much to choose from?
I think actually what actually happens here, apart from the really technical corners like turns 1, 2 and 3 and the wonderful flow behind the paddock through effectively turns 7, 8 and 9, I think that they can recover from all sorts of mistakes because you can run a little wider and a little bit wider. I actually think it's easier. I mean, to get the ultimate lap, fine, you've got to be absolutely on the perfect line, but I think a lot of them can get quite close. That's why the intervals always seem quite large between the drivers here, but that's simply because the track is so long. But I think if you can crack it through turns 1, 2 and 3,
yeah, that's the
carry speed through the
difficulty,
S's,
yeah.
I think they've got plenty of space to play. But it is a feature of Blancpaing GT World Challenge, particularly in Asia, going to Grand Prix standard facilities. So they have got a lot of space to play. But I think the space that feels as though it's on offer here. Great shot of the 2. Yes, I'm not going mad. There are 2 cars from BMW Team Studi. Well, I might be going mad, but there are definitely 2 cars from BMW Team Studi. And I'll explain that again in a moment. But I think the feeling of space, because there's so much space beyond the edge of the racing surface here, that it really does feel, and particularly when you turn onto the back straight, you almost feel as though you're in a different state or province. You seem so far away, but it's so broad in feeling, even broader than the feel you'd regularly have from a track of that width. I think that's it, because you just sit simply on the back straight. There are no buildings around. You're just running with the trees off in the distance and a long view over to the main buildings here. So I think it does give drivers an awful lot of confidence. I don't think it's the sort of place you really have to screw yourself up to go for a fast lap. I think it does give a fairly kind, benevolent feeling. That's not to underplay the levels of speed they achieve, particularly down the long straights.
Straight line speed in particular,
yeah, so it's not as though you feel as though you're going slowly. But there, these shots, just those, you could just see how much space the drivers must feel as though they have. And that was the twisty middle part of the circuit.
Jakuchu on his way out. Kinoshita still parked, thinking about it. I wonder if there's something wrong with Kinoshita's car, the fact that he settled so easily for that qualifying time, or rather, more pertinently, qualifying position, and he's still parked.
Yeah, well, it hasn't come out, as you say. It was probably about the first one into the pit lane. They're still waving the giant flags opposite the pits. Good to see some enthusiastic Japanese BMW fans opposite the pits, but didn't see any work going on the Kinoshita car. Maybe he's just simply just going to use his rubber very gently, very carefully, save his sweetest stuff for the race.
Got a bit of a headache, maybe.
Yeah. So he had now, they're all out on the track. Kinoshita has followed, but I think as part of the challenge, you never know. I mean, the driver you always want to beat is the driver who's your teammate, but normally that means you're in different cars in single-seaters, for example. But of course, for GT races, your teammate is the one who shares a car with you. Now, this weekend, Team Studi has decided to separate them. I think it's a fantastic story. It certainly gives us plenty to talk about, but I like it. Nobody can get close to them in the GT4 Championship. They've had such a remarkable season, just super strong. They came on very strong at the end of 2018, and they've carried that form into this year. But I think what a great idea. I can think of all sorts of other championships where it'd be great if a lineup can be split for the final round.
And the atmosphere must be very different. You spoke about the pit crew, whether they've got two different crews or whether they're all doing double time. But think about the amount of times that drivers speak to each other during the course of a weekend when they form part of a team. Now, these two perhaps will hardly be saying a word to each other other than what friendship normally requires, because of course they'll be keeping trade secrets from each other.
Yeah, they're not working towards a common goal this weekend. Their goal is to have a lot of fun. But I think it's good. I mean, it defines the fact that one of them will be champion. It's not a case anybody else can overhaul them. They just want to see. I think it's a really good little twist. So, 6 cars out on track waiting for them to come through. It looks though the fastest of them is going to be Tony Fong in the number 11 Mercedes that was fastest in the hands of his teammate Brian Lee in the first practice session, in the first qualifying session. But still waiting for those times to come through and equate. BMW Team Studi, plenty of presents down in their pit garage. A wonderful race livery and their amazing merchandise. And I must say their T-shirts were flying off the stands in the Japanese round. Now, Ringo Chong sharing with Setiawan Santoso for the umpteenth time this season. Ringo was fastest this morning and expects him to be fastest. He was fastest yesterday afternoon, fastest in the second practice session this morning. Ringo in number 111. So that first flying lap waiting to be completed. Ringo Chong getting a little bit twitchy under the braking there, but carrying the speed in very nicely. Right, you know, that's turn 5. You know, we were commenting on about the fact that there's plenty of space. Even there, Ringo couldn't keep it on the track. He was out over the curbs and just went too deep into the corner. Had to twitch, had to adjust. Now getting a better run of it. Waiting to see the middle sector time. It's still Tony Fong at the top of the charts, but only 3 drivers have been through that sector. But he's a good second quicker than Douglas Koo. But Douglas, the Malaysian racer, first race this championship this year for him, and he's feeling his way as he settles in at Craft Bamboo Racing in their Mercedes. So the best times for 2 minutes 18 in that first qualifying session. Let's see what the second set of drivers can do. First flying lap on the board will be number 11. It goes top 2 minutes 21.8. Well, that's not a competitive time, but it's the wind-up time. I think the Pirelli tyres take a moment or two to come to their very best, particularly on the GT4 cars.
Koo rides in just about 4 seconds slower, having completed his first theoretically fast lap. We've got all drivers now having completed their out lap and starting to register times that will become meaningful.
Okay, Joe Chi has gone to the top of the class in 199. We're looking at the sister car from Team iRace.win. That's in the hands now of Ringo Chong, who ought to be going top. In fact, his first sector is better than anybody else's by some margin, and the same story in the second sector. So he could be down into 2 minute 19s, even into the 18s. Here he comes, 2 minutes 18. Possible, is it, for Ringo Chong? Let's have a look. See, over the finish line he goes, 2 minutes 18.8 seconds. So he's clear by 1.5 seconds of Joe Chi. So it's the 2 Mercedes from Team iRace.win at the top of the charts, waiting for the BMWs to come through. They've not completed a flying lap yet, but certainly looking at their splits, they're nowhere near the pace of Ringo Chong.
Yeah, Chong's out on his own at the moment, isn't he? All 3 sectors the quickest among the 6 men in the field.
And Sanaka Chikuchi goes through. He's 2.6 seconds down. So certain, and this is, bear in mind, he's had the benefit of a 15-minute qualifying session already. And his teammate Takayuki Kinoshita should be the next one over the start-finish line. But the best time still 2 minutes 18.8 seconds. Ringo Chong in 111.
Chikuchi's jumped up to 3rd, having put in a good 3rd sector.
Yeah, the best 3rd sector of anybody, so maybe next time around. Still waiting for Takayuki Kinoshita, who was the last one out of the pits, to come sweeping into our view, into the final corner. Hasn't happened yet, just about to happen now. Here comes the second of the BMWs. 81 in the hands of Kinoshita, 82, that's 3rd fastest in the hands of Sanaka Chikuchu. And Takuchi's had his best time taken away from him for exceeding track limits at where the final corner. There are 16 turns, imagine that. You blow it at the final corner. So Kinoshita has first blood, but he's 8 Did I say that? Yes, I did. 8 seconds off the pace. So, yes, it's his fastest lap. Yes, it's his only flying lap. But, yes, he's 8 seconds off the pace. I thought the body language as that BMW swept into the final corner. Well, sweat might be over-egging it. Drove into the final corner. Was not that we're seeing from Ringo Chong in 111. Now I'm sure he's picking up the pace. Ringo Chong from Jochi, 111 from 199. They're both Mercedes, both entered by Team iRace.win, team from Taipei. Are we getting any improvements? Tony Fong's improved his form, but he stays down in third place. He's nearly 2 seconds down. It just emphasises the pace of Ringo Chong. He got very close to the best pace set in the first qualifying session.
Takuchi's had another good attempt at his next lap. Remember that last one wiped out for exceeding track limits. He's gone rather fast in the second sector, though, faster than anybody else so far. So every chance that he'll leap back up the leaderboard there.
Well, the move to Ringo Chong has just taken another 0.2 of a second or thereabouts. He's not off the best. He's now 2 minutes 18.665 seconds. Big advantage over Joe Chi. Joe Chi in the number 199 Mercedes be coming through. But the next one over the start-finish line, Sonako Chikuchu, how good is that lap? And it's good to go top by half a second. He was playing, he was toying with the opposition. Did the first session, that's for this afternoon's grid. We're now sorting the grid of the Saturday race, the second of our 2 races, the final race of the 2019 Blancpaing GT World Challenge Asia.
Smiles in the garage. Let's just wait a couple of seconds to make sure that nothing's been wiped off for exceeding track limits. Looks good so far, still there. But 2 very quick sector times there from Takuchi. So getting faster and faster. His teammate Kinoshita still at the bottom. And still needs to impress us, doesn't he?
Yeah, but his sector times are good. Actually, first sector right on the pace, second sector pretty much on the pace. 81, will he go second? He goes third. He's half a second precisely down. He's 22 thousandths of a second down on Ringo Chong. We're looking at 111. Ringo Chong going out of turn 10. Up the infield straight, then he's got effectively the broad. It's very similar to the first corner, except it doesn't have much gradient change. There's 3-corner sequence that guides them onto the back straight. Instead of being a tight right, it starts with a tight left, and then it flips around. You keep on going right after that, and then the car will sweep onto the back straight, and then that's where the track feels that it's very, very wide. As the drivers focus their eyes on the far distance, because that's the grandstand that they will have to pass, and then brake heavily. The long shot from the end of the back straight, that's turn 14, looking up track. You can see a slight heat haze there, but it's a gentle day here rather than a searingly hot one. And again, long shots and a slightly better middle sector there, second sector for Ringo Chong. Well, I don't think he's going to find the half a second he needs to go back to the top of the pile. He's 0.47 of a second down on Sonako Chikuchu. But again, another very, very capable lap indeed. Where's the trouble coming from? Where's the challenge coming from? Bang, fastest first sector of anyone. Takayuki Kinoshita, the last driver out of the pit lane. He's lying third at the moment. He's got to find half a second, but at this rate, he's actually looking good for it on this lap.
Looking very good, actually. A good, almost 0.3 quicker than anybody else in that first sector. So setting himself up for a dynamite lap here. Let's see how he goes.
Yeah, well, I can just report that Ringo Chong did cross the start-finish line with an improved time, but only by about 0.808 of a second. He's 0.4 seconds down on Sonako Chikuchi. So improved in second place, built his margin very slightly to nearly a 10th. Yes, we're talking tiny fractions over Takayuki Kinoshita, but Kinoshita on our screens at the moment, number 81, is attacking big twitch as he gets down to turn 14 for the braking.
Didn't have a very good second sector, Bruce, to be honest. It was looked a little bit clumsy, so I don't know if he'll improve upon his position, just courtesy of that first sector time.
I think he's going to, because he was 0.3 up in the first sector, but just 0.06 of a second down in the second sector. Nice positive run through turn 16. Doesn't go wide over the curb. His teammate knows that you can lose a time if you do that. I think he's going to go into second place. Let's take a look. No, he was down by 0.2 of a second, so that last sector, I said he was twitching under braking, didn't get the braking right into turn 14, the right-hand hairpin, the end of the back straight, and I think that really scuppered the lap for him there. But there is still time on the clock.
Chikuchu's gone into the pits.
Kinoshita is Yeah, Kikuchi's in the pits. Let's see for Kinoshita. Session ends at 12:42. It's 12:39, so there is still time for one further lap. So it's Sonako Kikuchi from Ringo Chong, Takayuki Kinoshita, Zhou Qi, and then Tony Fong, who is in number 11 Mercedes, and Douglas Koo finding his way. He's 7 seconds down on the pace at the moment, but he's only just rejoined the championship, just getting used to the car. 77 is entered by Craft Bamboo Racing, and there it is. Let's see, is this lap going to be an improvement? Possibly. Yes, it is. He gets down to 5.8 seconds. So he found 1.2, 1.3 seconds on that lap. That's decent. He's got to keep chipping away, but has still got time for another lap, maybe even 2 more laps. Yes, in fact, he might just squeak in 2 more. Checkered flag may not be his friend. It could greet him at the end of this next lap. We will see.
Fraction over 2 minutes left then in this section. 2 cars in the pits, 4 still out on track.
Well, Ringo Chong is still out on the track. Body language of the car looks very good in number 111 Mercedes. Again, actually, at certain points on this circuit, including turn 9, when you go onto the infield straight, you can see drivers, you think, why are you braking towards the end of the corner? It's just simply to balance the car to complete the cornering, because to risk running wide over the curves they don't want to do, and also they know that track limits are very, very important on these circuits, because we've already had Sonako Kikuchi having a time removed from him. You exceed them, and the people in race control can see every single corner on the circuit and the straights as well. They can see if you're going 4 wheels over the white line at the edge of the circuit, and if you do so, your time will be taken away. And I must say, this circuit certainly, they seem better because there's a bit more space at staying within track limits than other circuits. We've had many races through the championship and many championships around the world. You look at qualifying times and you see the times being taken away time after time after time for track lead. Interesting one. Number 77 was just totally off the side of the track. Douglas Koo, I think he was being gentlemanly, keeping out of the way, but that's ruined this lap. So, in fact, I think he's bringing that in.
While Kinoshita is still out on track, he's clearly given up the ghost in terms of registering a fast time. We're not going to see anything from him in the time that remains, I think. So it looks like Kikuchi is going to start ahead of him in race 2 on Saturday as well. So, yes, this story is being told.
That's interesting. If you'd asked me beforehand, I'd have said I'd expect Kinoshita to be the quicker of the duo in each of the qualifying sessions. Hasn't proved to be the case. You can see the indicator on. There's still time. He could have completed this lap and started another one, but it's not as though either Kikuchi or Kinoshita need to learn anything about the BMW M4 at this stage of the championship. So only 4 of the 6 cars in GT4 out on the circuit, but for a lot of them, I think they will probably be told, come on in. Let's see, number 11 is Tony Fong bringing that in. No, he's going around and he's going to be, he's trying to complete the lap, but it hasn't been a quick lap for him so far, so he's not going to improve. The checkered flag is out to greet him. Yeah, his time is only 7/10 of a second down. The body language looks slower, and no improvement either for Douglas Koo. I saw him in the Craft Bamboo Racing pulled over towards the side of the circuit to let others come through, but I think he'd already backed off, which is a shame, because his first sector and his final one were actually his best, but I think he'd made a mistake somewhere on the middle sector and was recovering. In fact, yes, he had. His time was pretty slow to that middle sector. So that's it for GT4 qualifying. We now know the grid order for both of the races. The one that starts this afternoon at 4:15 and the one that starts tomorrow, different time, should be hotter, 5 to 12, 5 minutes to midday tomorrow is the last race, the 2019 Blancpaing GT World Challenge Asia. And this weekend in the GT4 category, at least, we've got a real change with the 2 BMWs from BMW Team Studi, and they will start the second race in 3rd and 1st position, with Takayuki Kinoshita being eclipsed for the 2nd practice qualifying session running. It's his teammate Sonako Kikuchi who's topped by 0.4 of a second, and Team iRace top win. It was in the hands of Ringo Chong, who'd set the GT4 pace all meeting until it came to qualifying, and he's going to have to settle for 2nd place in the GT4 class. So looking back at the highlights, an empty track became a slightly fuller one, and immediately it was Douglas Koo leading the field out, and all other drivers going out for 15 minutes. So they had 2 practice sessions, get to know the track, plenty of space to go and play, and it was the 82 BMW that delivered better than anybody else. Sonako Kikuchi liberated by driving on his own for the entirety of this meeting. Instead of sharing with his regular teammate Takayuki Kinoshita, they've decided to have a shootout, see who will be the 2019 champion. They've got 1 car each. They're not sharing. They're not those sort of guys anymore. They've moved on. And all along they're being challenged by Ringo Chong in the Team iRace.win. They've got 2 Mercedes as throughout the championship. The 1-1-1 is the ones in the hands of Chong. Went very well indeed, but 0.4 of a second down as Sonaka Jakuchu made it 2 poles from 2 advantages over his teammate Kinoshita. Separated, and in both the qualifying session, he's come out ahead. The number 11 Mercedes on pole for the first of the races in GT4, but in the hands of Tony Fong, only 5th today. But the stage is set for GT4 racing for this weekend. Now, coming up in a few minutes' time, it's the turn of the GT3 runners. Bit more noise, a lot more speed, more aerodynamics, and more spectacle coming up. But that was pretty spectacular from Sonaka Jakuchu, keeping it just the right side of the white lines at the final corner to take pole. 2 minutes 18 seconds. The job was done. And plenty of pleasure and laughter, well, at least for one of the individuals in the BMW team studio pit lane there. So 82 takes pole for tomorrow's GT4 section of the race, and now the stage is set, the sky is clear, the views are long here at the Shanghai International Circuit, and the 6 cars are about to be put away into their garage, and the real rolling thunder will come. We know which duo of drivers are going to be champions in GT4, but with those drivers going for a car each, one of them will be the individual champion and the other will be the runner-up. So the stakes are still high in GT4 here at the final round of the series. Indication of how things have changed over the years. I don't remember those skyscrapers. The ones on the left of the shot, or the ones straight ahead? Not from years ago. I'm going to do a compare and contrast photo from when I was last here, because I expected them to spring up, but they really haven't. Black and white photo, or is it? Is that fairly recent? Yes, I had my man take it. He put his head under a big black shroud and eventually, pulled the plate out. Well, it's an environment that's changing a lot, and as you said, one of the most pleasing aspects of it is the trees. We really do have quite a pretty track. Let me use that word as you go around. It's extensive. It's very large indeed. So there are different scenes to be seen, but yeah, it's all very enjoyable indeed. And if you've never been to the Shanghai International Circuit, on the left-hand side are the trees just to the left of the main pit buildings. Beautiful, beautiful paddock offices. I mean, most of us would like to actually live in them. They are so beautiful, surrounded by ponds and trees. Yes. And big terraces. Really luxurious. And then if you venture further off to the left of our screen, you get to the bulk of where the circuit lies, and there's a fabulous karting circuit some distance off over there with its own set of buildings and race control. So really has been responsible for bringing on a whole generation of Chinese racers who are now going out to play on the global stage. But let's take a look. Wow, it's a fabulous shot over the far-flung parts of the circuit, and the kart circuit is off over there somewhere. As you can see, plenty of space. This is the key to the circuit. Beautiful weather here is something that isn't guaranteed, and I must say, those that come racing in spring, it can be very cold when the Chinese Grand Prix is held, and I've been here later in the season where it can also be really quite chilly. But right now, these are the perfect weather conditions as we look out around the Shanghai International Circuit. Not too humid, which is often a concern here. Not too hot, that's a blessing as well. And those trademark canopies, that's the turn 14 hairpin turning into turn 15, and then the final corner, middle of your shot, turning to the left. You can't quite see, in fact, you can, just behind the grandstand, see the top of the huge buildings over the pit lane. But as I said, oh, sorry, I was going to say the big bonus here is the air quality, though, isn't it? Sometimes absolutely. Not always the best in China. Certainly at the moment around Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, really struggling with air quality. But as you can see, you can really get a good idea of what's going on in the distance there, because the air quality is so good just at the moment. Right. Now it gets complicated. We have 5 sets of drivers, or pairs, who can win the championship. Roloff Bruins, top of the charts. 50 points, the maximum haul. 25 points per win. 2 races to complete the season. He is sitting pretty. If he manages to finish 3rd, bear with me on this one, in the first of the races this afternoon's, and his challengers don't score, he's got it in the bag. And Roloff has been coming on and coming on. Philip Pamprecht and Tanat Sathyan Thirikul going very well so far this weekend. They are 2nd. They have to really be on the podium to stand any chance of continuing in the championship hunt. And they'd be joint winners in the Drivers' Championship if they managed to get that far. Indeed. Yeah. Vutikon Intrafuvasak and Yuya Sakamoto, they've got the same number of points. They're in different cars, so they are both in with a shot. Manuel Metzger can't win the championship because he shares with Roloff Bruins, so whatever points he scores, Roloff will be scoring the same number. And likewise, Alexander Imperatori missed a round, so he can't. But Martin Rump and Wear on Tan down in 6th overall, they can take this championship title.
Theoretically.
Theory is a fine thing. Effectively, if they don't win the race, anything less than a win in this first race, it's over and out. But they have to then follow it up with another win in the second race. And that hasn't been achieved since 2017, when Aditya Patel and Mitch Gilbert for OD Racing scored the only double win. That's winning both races around in the history of this championship. So it's a lot at stake. And a double win, I just want to reiterate, if you take a win in the first race, you've got 15 seconds extra at your driver change. You think how you have to score the perfect result to achieve a win in the second race if you win the first. But look out for Rump and Tan. They've still got a chance to do it. And while it's possible, they're going to be going for it. It's suddenly going to get very noisy, very busy. But look out. We have to see how they're going to fare. They're in the number 12 Audi from Audi Team Sport Absolute Racing. Number 12, Martin Rump, the Estonian racer, out in this practice, in this qualifying session. I keep saying practice. This is qualifying. This is 15 minutes. And really, for any championship challenger, you've got to take pole position. And big advantage leading on the run to the first corner. As long as you don't fluff your start, you're on the inside line to the first corner. But if you're down in 5th, 6th, 7th, even outside, down towards the tail of the top 10, you can't forget it. But you've really made the rest of your weekend very, very difficult indeed. When I say weekend, it's a Friday, Saturday race meeting this time around. Bit of a twist, but this is looking through the windscreen of number 911. That's Absolute Racing's Porsche. Just to reiterate, Absolute Racing enters Audis and Porsches. 911 going out on the track. Tanart Sathian Thirikul. He'll hand over to his German teammate Philipp Hamprecht. They're second in the championship. There is the number 12 Audi I was talking about. That's Martin Rump. That's the one that's the outside shot. I mean, very much an outside shot in the championship. They have 90 points. MG Choi has 47 points more. If I say MG Choi and you're thinking Roloff Bruins, that's because he is a man of several names. This year he started racing under the name of MG Choi, but I think our graphics will probably say Roloff Bruins. Either way, championship leader, sharing with Manuel Metzger, but Manuel hasn't done all of the rounds. But certainly the Indigo Racing Mercedes crew has just, at the end of last season, it started coming on strong, and this season has been super, super strong through the course of the championship, leading on points. And certainly looking very good indeed. They've got 3 wins. Win in the opening race of our second meeting, that was in Thailand at the Chang International Circuit at Buriram. Win in the opening race at Fuji. And then last time out, win on home ground, Korean racer MG Choi Roloff Bruins, from pole position at the Korea International Circuit. A circuit that looked sort of almost quite sad, didn't it? Because, of course, it burst onto the scene with the World Championship Formula One event. They were finishing it as the teams were arriving, but it's a great racing venue, and I really do urge people to go. But right now, we're at a current Formula One World Championship venue, the Shanghai International Circuit, known all around the world. Fabulous place to come racing. Never looked better.
And as you said, Bruce, mathematically, numerous people could win the Drivers' Championship, but really we ought to be looking at Roloff Bruins, Philipp Hamprecht and Tanart Sathian Thirikul. I spoke to all of them yesterday, and Philipp and Tanart were probably the more buoyant of the two. They seem to be enjoying the experience slightly more. Less pressure on them, isn't there? Because they're coming from behind, as it were. Whereas Roloff, who is right in front of Tanart as we look through his windscreen right now,
I'm keeping an eye on you.
Maybe just showed signs that he was wielding a little bit under the pressure. But yes, Tanart can see him, and he sees every move from where he's sitting at the moment.
Now, this is the sort of occasion in which, you can see it, but you're supposed to be concentrating on your own, because I always think, particularly in qualifying, if you're looking at another driver, you're not really focusing entirely on what you're doing. I think it maybe is just circumstantial they're out there together, but it's quick fire. It's 15 minutes of qualifying. We've already had best part of 1.5 of those minutes. They've really got to get their tyres sweet on this out lap. Sometimes the second flying lap, which is their third lap out of the pits, tends to be the very best. But don't forget, it's a particularly long lap here, so maybe their first. It depends how they bring their tyres up to temperature, but the 97 Mercedes from Indigo Racing leading his closest championship rival, Tanart Sathian Thirikul, around the circuit. 9:18, they've been looking very good this weekend. Panther AAS Motorsport, Absolute Racing have already bagged the GT3 Teams Championship. They run their own 2 Porsches, and this is the one that runs from the neighbouring garage entered for Panther Motorsport by Absolute Racing. So first championship we know. Absolute Racing, as I said earlier, they also run a pair of Audis, so very, very busy indeed. But they've got the championship in the bag. Eyes now on the Drivers' Championships. And they're in the mix, both for overall, for Silver Cup and for Pro-Am honours. So busy place to be. Maybe they'll need a very large trophy cabinet at the end of the season. The cars coming past our commentary positions. Great rumble of sound, a lot more noise than GT4 races now. Riding with 9:11 around the final corner of the lap. Tanart Safi and Thiracal going on to a flying lap.
As you say, yeah, every chance that after your out lap you can put in a good time, because the lap's so big, isn't it? Plenty of time to warm your tyres up and get used to it.
And Chinese racer sets fastest sector times. That's 9:99. He's been very strong, David Wyan Chen. He's in the Audi Sport Asia team TSRT. That's the Tianchi Racing Team Audi. And that's been going pretty well through the latter part of the season. David's been picking up the pace. He's had a podium showing with Andre Couto, but he's had a couple of fourth places with Rahel Frey, the Swiss racer. She's really been a benefit since she joined the championship. Ronald Bruins running out over the curb there, trying to steal a little more space to out of turn 5. You see an awful lot of drivers going out over the curbs as they trying to get the power down as soon as they can. The front ends of their car wash away as they're trying to accelerate towards those fabulous sweeping S's behind the paddock.
That's Bruins we've just seen, but Satyen Tirikul has registered marginally the better Sector 1 lap after their out lap, so he looks as if he's on course to set the first fast lap.
Well, again, it's really good to have them on the screen together. I thought one might put the other off, and I tell you what, Safi and Thiracal will be encouraged because Roloff Bruins is going over the curbs. I've seen him at turn 5, then coming out of turn 9. He's quite loose. He's really, really pressing, and the Porsche giving chase. Tanat Safi and Thiracal looks much, much tidier. Not that tidy is necessarily always fast, but certainly it's looking quite ragged from Roloff Bruins. Still waiting for the first flying lap to be completed. As you can see from the graphic, a lot of cars out there. 23 actually out on the circuit. Not one of them has completed a flying lap, but that's about to be changed. Just waiting for Christina Nielsen was very late out. She's in the 99 Craft Bamboo racing car, but who's going to go to the top of the charts?
Well, I'll compare Bruins and Satyen Tirikul for you. I'll keep a close watch on that, and Satyen Tirikul's certainly the quicker of the two. First two sectors anyway. We've got the third and final important one to come, but the signs are that the Thai driver could go straight to the top.
Well, it's Yuan Bo, Chinese racer, who's put in the best time by 0.6 of a second. He's in another of the Porsches from Absolute Racing. He's not in the championship battle, but hey, he's racing on home ground. You do what you've got to do, and he's top. So it's Bo from Safi and Thiracal from Bruins. And then one of the new entries, Chris Onchia, is fourth quickest. This is a very, very good result so far from Phantom Pro Racing. 3 new Mercedes from Chinese entrants this weekend. Sorry, 4. We've got actually Team iRace.win have entered a car in the GT3 class. That's Lin Nang. We've also got 2 from Zhun Motorsport up from Zhuhai. And Phantom Pro Racing, and the Phantom Pro Racing entry number 5 is 4th quickest, 1.9 seconds down. Early days, but very well delivered indeed. Wanbo on our screen, new livery this weekend, very, very jazzy indeed. You can't really tell as it's moving around, but lots of red swirls on the black nose of the black bonnet of that car. One of those liveries that looks good in the pit garage, maybe less impressive out on the circuit, but what's impressive is Wanbo's pace. Fastest lap, fastest the first flyers. Not everybody's completed them, still about another 10 to do so.
Things may have slightly changed, but the last time we saw, there's 4 Chinese drivers in the top 6, so good for the local drivers so far.
I have been forgetful. Apparently, there was a livery very similar to this on the 912 Porsche at Suzuka, but I do like liveries that get a little bit augmented.
Yes.
A little bit of change, but this second flying lap from Wanbo, he's made a mess of the middle sector, but he had the fastest first sector. But that's been usurped because Tanat Safi and Thiracal, championship challenger, in second place overall. Second place now, Martin Rupp, bang, first flying lap, top of the charts. That's impressive, 4 tenths, 5 tenths, and just Wambo's first lap has been taken away from him, so that's why he disappeared from the top of the charts. But anyhow, Martin Rump's time was better. Remember that, the number 12 Audi, that's a championship challenge. That's the outside chance. Here's a cluster of cars.
I'm expecting Satya Interikal to go top, actually. He's had two. There
So
he is.
Does. Oh, by 10th of a second, precisely over Martin Rump, but he's done one further flying lap. Now there's a bit much traffic for this group. In fact, I think 911 Satya Interikal got in behind the 888 Prince Jeffrey Ibrahim's car and used a bit of a tow, but in fact it might have been a bit of an encumbrance. He's quicker. He's got it out of the way in front. We're looking through Satya Intirikal's windscreen. He's got the man he needs to be ahead of on the grid. Needs actually several other drivers to be ahead of Roelof Bruins. Bruins at the moment, good only for 5th place. Satya Interikal is fastest. He's top 4 cars between them. If it stays as it does, it won't change. It won't stay as it will, because behind Satya Interikal, we've got Sakamoto in 2nd place. Martin Rump is winding up on his 2nd flyer. He went to the top. He's been usurped, but he's still got to complete that 2nd flying lap. And let's see what he can do in that number 12 Audi. How good is this lap from Satya Interikal? Not very good indeed. First sector, he's backed off. Traffic got in the way. As we said, he had to get past Prince Jeffrey Ibrahim, and he's decided back off. He's got the track space now. You want clear track ahead of you when you're going to attack in qualifying. Well,
he's currently 5 spots ahead of Roelof Bruins, so there may well be reason for him to be quite satisfied with what he's done so far, but still, just under 7 minutes left of this session.
The car that I think is going to go top is the grey Audi number 12. It goes top. 2 minutes, 6.261, 3/10, no, just over a quarter of a second ahead of Satya Interikal. So Satya Intirikal's only got 2 cars now between himself. See, it can keep on changing. He's 2nd, sorry. The Bruins is in 5th.
And Rump did that with a very unspectacular middle sector, so you think he's probably got quite a bit left in his bag.
OK, someone else I think can get in the mix. He's not a championship challenger. He hasn't got a time on the board. He's done 2 laps, but he's been in and out of the pits. David YN Chen, he's down in the 999 Audi, bottom of the charts. He's one of these drivers who can get up, and if he can get ahead of Roelof Bruins, Bruins has been moved back down. This is very impressive. The number 5, Phantom Pro Racing Mercedes, Pro-Am entry. Chris Onchia. He's sharing with Wailu, who races in the World Championship, World Endurance Championship, and is coming to play here this weekend. 5th quickest. You don't expect in a championship as competitive as this for a new entry to come in. Yes, they know the circuit. Chinese team racing in China, but that is a really impressive thing, and it's the last thing that Roelof Bruins wanted. And Roelof must have had a time taken away, because he's suddenly down in 10th place, 10th out of the 23 runners in class. On screen, great looking car, the Mercedes with the gold flashes over its black and grey flanks, and going very, very well indeed. And this is a driver, he competes in the China GT Championship. A little puff of smoke out the back there. How good is this lap from him?
Bruins is back up to 6th, by the way.
OK, his time was taken away. I didn't see a message at the bottom of the screen. Might have been a timing glitch, but the fact of the matter, he's almost a second down, or he's 9/10 of a second down on pole position, and he is about 2/3 of a second down on his chief rival, Satya Interikal. Let's have a look at who else is in the mix. Yuya Sakamoto, he is 3rd equal in the championship. He's 3rd on the grid, so he is still in the mix as well. And Inthrafuvasak, he's equal 3rd, he's in 4th. All the cream is rising towards the top, but Bruins has yet to respond. He's down in 7th place. I said look out for YN Chen. He was last, he was 23rd, he's now 5th. So he's done what I expected him to do. It's getting tighter and tighter at the top.
Talk about cream rising to the top. Satya Interikal pulled into the pits for a moment, but he's out again on an outlap, and plenty of time for him to still make another impression on this session. We've got over 4 minutes left.
Well, you say plenty of time, it's only a 15-minute session. It's very, very short indeed. It's quick fire. Then we go to their co-drivers who will define the grid for tomorrow's race. But we're trying to sort out who's going to be top, who's going to be on pole for this afternoon's race. The race kicking off at 4:15. But right now, we've only got 4 minutes remaining till the checkered flag will come out for the end of the penultimate qualifying session for these runners in 2019. A good, tidy-looking lap there from 9:12. That needs to pick up pace. This is Wambo. He was top. He's down in 10th place overall because he had his best lap taken away for exceeding track limits. Car number 97 has lost a time as well. There we go. It's under investigation. Time hasn't been taken away.
That's
Roloff Bruins.
Yeah.
That's why he dropped down the chart. Now it's under investigation. So he's got that time back, but he could lose
go
it.
away again. And I don't see improving on that time on this lap.
Well, here he is.
comes.
Let's wait. Let's take a look at his sector times this lap. Not good,
that
but he has.
great.
This lap is just starting. That last lap was not a good one from his point. He was 3-4 seconds off the ultimate pace.
So his destiny lies in the hands of the stewards. Interesting.
Good shot there. The two new entries from SRO Motorsport Crew up from Shanghai. Number 4 is their, let's see, 4 is their quicker car. That's Adeli Fong, as you'd expect. And teammate Yiming Lin is down towards the tail of the field, but Yiming was only competing in track days. You don't compete in track days, you perform on track days, you attend them, but that was last year. This year he's out in a GT3 car. Talk about moving quickly up the ladder, running in the AM class as you'd expect, but great to have them on board, and a team with big plans. But right now, which team is going to be, look, the clock keeps counting down. 9-11, Can Tanart Sathi and Thirical, this is his outlap. He won't be going top this time, but the important thing is what traffic is sitting in front of him on the circuit. Number 13 Audi could get in the mix, but at the moment Jingsu Sun, there it is, crossing the start-finish line, only down in just outside the top. He's in 11th place overall. Haven't had any improvements for a while. We had the outlap, the first flying lap, the second flying lap. It's true to form. They set their times on that, and in fact the only improvements are all in cars in the bottom half of our field. Tatar, Sathi and Thirical wide over the curbs there, kicking up the dust, trying to press on. Don't forget he did his outlap. Now he's on to flying lap, but he's getting a little too close to the back of number 99, which is Christina Nielsen. Where's Nielsen on the timing sheet? She's down in 14th place in her Craft Bamboo Racing Mercedes. He's not on its tail yet, and in fact he may be able to stay off her tail, but doesn't want to be interrupted.
It's all about consolidation for Satyan Thirical, now currently on the front row and well ahead of Bruins, but he'll know that Bruins has time to register something special, so he'll do what he can.
In fact, I saw a flash of green and thought it was Christina Nielsen's car. It's not. It's the car that's 5th quickest. That's all right. It won't interrupt him. It's Yan Chen. But it must be said on this lap, Tanart Sathi Thirical trying to get pole position. He's in 2nd at the moment. 1 minute, 20 seconds to go. The clock is counting down very quickly. I worry he's going to get a bit too close. A bit too close, might be interrupted. Yan Chen doing his very best. In fact, on that first sector, going slightly faster than Sathi and Thirical, so not going to get in the way, but you just need the clear track. You don't want to be interrupted. And this lap, not a good one from Sathi and Thirical.
Martin Rump's not going to improve. Bruce, he's in the pits, so Sathi and Thirical, if he does go quick, could well go to the top. He's not going to see an improvement from the man currently in the number 1 spot.
Half of the top 10 are in the pits. They feel they've put in their best lap, got the sweetest moments on those tyres. And so for Roloff Bruins, championship leader, at the moment he's going to start this afternoon's race 12 points to good. That's very handy. 25 points for a win, 18 for 2nd, 15 for 3rd, 12 points. That's the equivalent of a 4th place. He's that much to the good.
So Satyan Thirical has just registered his best Sector 2 time, which fills him with a little bit of hope.
Wow.
There
in fact, that was an improvement in his that was his best lap so far, 0.159 of a second down. So when it looked a bit scrappy earlier, Yan Chen keeps out the way, but look, the clock on the screen doesn't say 0-0, there's still time. Yan Chen, very, very polite, driving from the Chinese racer. Maybe he feels he's had his best shot. His last lap was actually within a 10th of his very best, but he pulled out of the way. So Tanart Sathi and Thirical should go and clap him on the back later, say, well done, thank you. I'm a championship challenger. You're not. Not that I'm trying to rub it in, but you didn't get in my way.
But he's got the best Sector 3 time of the day to provide momentum for a quick last lap here.
Checkered flag is out. Martin Rump has pole position, but will he hang on to it? Oh, it's going to be tight at this point. 159 of a second down, and Sathi and Thirical gone through the first sector faster than anybody else has managed. He's left it to the very, very end. There is traffic on the circuit. Please don't back off in front of him. This could be very good. We're looking at 9-11. This is Sathi and Thirical, the Thai driver, who's been getting better and better throughout this 2019 season. Can he move to the top of the charts? Waiting for him to get to the end of the second timing sector. He's got one of the Craft Bamboo Racing Mercedes in front of him. That's 88 in the hands of Jeffrey Lee. Jeffrey is nowhere near as quick. I don't think it's going to interrupt him. Half a lap to go, waiting for the second timing sector to be completed. If that is green or even better, purple, then he will be going to the top unless he trips up at the very end of the lap. So sweeping onto the back straight.
Very exciting. Yellow, okay.
Oh, he's 0.4 of a second down.
Not spectacular.
It looks so good with that fastest first sector of anyone. Well, the speed's in the car, the speed's in the driver, but you can't afford to squander that much time. Down the back straight he goes, not even close enough to get a slipstream off Jeffrey Lee in the 88 Craft Bamboo Racing Mercedes. No improvement surely coming on this lap, and in fact I would suggest that Tanart might just even peel into the pits. Is he going to complete the lap? No, he's coming into the pit lane, so he did his best. But importantly for the championship challenger, the closest of the 4 challengers to Roelof Bruins, he is second at the end of qualifying, and number 97, the championship leader, Roelof Bruins, is down in 7th. That is a very, very big advantage. The advantage he needs, because the gap between them is 12 points. So advantage very much at the moment going the way of Tanart, Sathi and Thiracal, the 911 Porsche, Absolute Racing, busy with their Porsches and their Audis. He's handing that over to his teammate Philip Hamprecht for the second qualifying session, but he can feel very pleased indeed with his performance. It's all at this stage, when it gets to the sharp end, Steve, about not making a mistake. A few moments over the curbs for both of them, but it's the number 12 Audi that takes the honours. The Estonian racer Martin Rump, totally the outside shot at the championship. He needs everything to go his way. He needs a small meteorite or a series of meteorites to hit his championship rivals, but all he could do was go out and put the car on pole. That's the job that he's done.
Meteorites aside, we really have set ourselves up for a very exciting first race. The leg that Bruins is going to run, he's obviously got plenty of cars to make up. There he is, down in 7th. It's going to be exciting.
Well, look, at the end of that qualifying session, the first of our 2 here at the Shanghai International Circuit, just over a 1/10 of a second between the car on pole position, Martin Rump's Audi, and the championship challenger, number 911, Tanart, Sathi and Thiracal. Then Humber Auto Corsa, don't forget, we didn't talk too much about Yuya Sakamoto. Good, quiet job. He's 3rd equal in the championship. He still has his hopes. He's qualified 3rd. But look, 7th place, Solite Indigo Racing, their Mercedes, Roelof Bruins, nearly a second down. But importantly for him, or tragically for him, 5 cars between himself and his leading championship rival, the 911 Porsche of Tanart, Sathi and Thiracal. You can see it's coming out of the pit lane, grey with the reddy orange flashes on its flanks, and immediately in front of him is the championship leader. I hadn't noticed that Solite, then almost the last pit garage that they pulled out right in front, so they could keep an eye on each other. And as I said early in the session, Bruins was running over the curbs at several points around the lap, and Sathi and Thiracal was going faster and faster but looking tidier. And don't forget, that's also rather good for keeping life in your tyres. And again, riding on board with Sathi and Thiracal, you can see how tight and twisted it is, particularly through that first 3-corner sequence that opens the lap. But Roelof Bruins looking to see what he could do. The Prince Jeffrey Ibrahim in between the 2 of them didn't interrupt either. And in fact, ended up down in 20th position in the qualifying session. But it was about making sure you had clear track, and it wasn't always a job very well done by Tanart, Sathi and Thiracal. This lap would have been interrupted, but when it came to the very sharp end of the field, he kept going faster, and Jeffrey Ibrahim pulling out of the way very politely there. That's up at between turns 1 and 2. Now look, it plunges away. This is turn 2, going down to turn 3. Very, very technical. But as much as anything, it was about good track management, and certainly the number 12 Audi team from Absolute Racing did that very, very well indeed. Martin Rump taking pole position. He's way down on points, but he still has an outside hope of taking the 2019. He's played his role, pole position by 0.159 of a second. And now it's the turn of all these drivers' teammates to see what they can do when they define the grids. Not for this afternoon's race, we're looking forward to that at 4:15, but for the race that we will have at 5 to 12 tomorrow, as you're just considering coffee or an early lunch. But don't have either, because you're going to have a race with us.
Tomorrow being Saturday, not Sunday. We don't have a weekend of racing as such here, so don't confuse yourselves, viewers. Join us on Saturday for the second and final race of the season.
It's quick fire already. We have the second drivers of each of these cars, and a lot of them at pit exit, and certainly the first one out on the track will be Manuel Metzger. German racer, been so strong since joining the championship to race for Indigo Racing, and he's determined that he will have clear track when he starts his first flying lap. They'll go out when we get the start of this session. It's due out at 13:14. We're at nearly at 13:13, so just over a minute. You can see a slight heat haze over the pit lane, but trust me, it's fantastic weather conditions here. Not too hot, not too humid. Track conditions really, really good. Increasing amount of rubber going down. And certainly for the drivers who did the first qualifying session, they'll have lent in as their teammate was getting strapped in, given them a few words on track conditions. But I don't think there'll be any surprises for anybody out there. Frankly, it does remove the number of excuses they can offer at the end of their session. But let's hope no excuses will be offered by these drivers, because simply track conditions are perfect, but they do still have to manage where they are and where their rivals are, and more importantly, if there are any slower drivers up in front of them, where they make their move to go past. So the lights will be turning from red to green in 30 seconds. More cars joining the line. And let's just run you down championship points at the moment. Roloff Bruins, who did the first qualifying session, his car is a 97 Mercedes. That's at the front of the queue. It's got a 12-point advantage. And if between them they can come third in the first race, that pretty much makes it, well, in fact, not pretty much, it does make them, regardless of their opposition, the 2019 champions. But we shall not get ahead of ourselves, because we know that Roloff Bruins will be starting that race from 7th. So finishing third might even be quite an achievement indeed. And another factor we have to consider is success penalties. They do not have any, because the second race for Metzger and Bruins did not produce a podium finish. It was 4th place in the second of the 2 races. So they will have a clear run without any extra time at their pit stops when we get to race 1. But let's not overcomplicate it. Let's just focus on the qualifying as the cars go out. This is qualifying session number 2. This is to define the grid for tomorrow's race, the last race, the 12th race of our 6-round championship. And if you've just switched on and just spotted the number 5 Mercedes, is one you're not used to seeing very often. That is Phantom Pro Racing, a Chinese team. One of 11 Chinese entered teams here in this final round. 12 Chinese drivers, and that was shared by Chris Chia, and Lu Wei will be taking it out in this session, the Canadian racer, who appears in the World Championship and certainly be doing a lot of racing. I think being racing in the European Le Mans Series as well through the course of this year, so good to have him on board in this championship. One team with 2 Mercedes this weekend, new Chinese team, SRO Motorsports Group, and the driver coming out in number 4 is Josh Burden. The car is being shared this weekend by Adelie Fong, driver born in Hong Kong. Josh Burden, an Australian. And a couple of cars quite slow to come out. The orange McLaren in the background. Absa Motorsport be going better and better. Piti Bhirombhakdi just handed over to his Japanese teammate Keita Sawa. Certainly becoming no strangers to the top 10 in races now, as that 720S really starts to pick up the pace. The other car sitting there was Antstone Racing. That's Naoki Yokomitsu. So 2 Japanese drivers taking their time to get out on the circuit, Steve.
I think we saw a BMW being wheeled away there from the pits. Not clear to me whether that was a GT4 from the previous session or...
Yeah, it was. It was
right
up at pit end, almost beneath our commentary position there. And yeah, that was just being tucked away. The GT4s have done their running, done their 2 qualifying sessions, and already onto their first flying lap, led by Manuel Metzger. It's the Indigo Racing Mercedes, front of the queue.
Oh, that seems to have... we seem to be walking there. Maybe just attending to something, knowing that he had space behind it in front of him.
One car that goes particularly well in the hands of one of its drivers is car number 88, and Alessio Picariello has taken that over, the Craft Bamboo Racing entry. Jeffrey Lee does the first session, Alessio's done the second, and just looking at the first on the out lap, the intervals, timing intervals, certainly it looks as though Alessio's picking up the pace in that very well indeed. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. All the drivers, they're all a little below their ultimate pace on their out lap now. They're getting the heat in the tyres. Manuel Metzger pressing on that 97 Mercedes from Indigo Racing, a car that Roloff Bruins has driven all season. The opening round, we had Gabriele Piana, Italian racer. They picked up a 2nd and a 5th, so it was fair pickings at the opening round. But we had Patrick Niederhauser drive it as well. Very impressive indeed. But it's Manuel Metzger who's been the main teammate for Indigo Racing.
Quite a lot of pressure on him, isn't there?
A lot.
Because he's got to support his teammate Roloff Bruins as best he can, and for no real benefit of his own.
No, indeed. But well, he's a professional driver, works Mercedes driver, and he's appeared at 3 rounds, and in each of those rounds they've taken 1 victory. So he's been the winning mix there. You
just don't want to make a mistake, though, do you? That could cost it for your teammate in the Drivers' Championship. That's the pressure that's on him.
Well, you know what? Because they effectively need just a 3rd place, it may not come in the first race, but if it comes in the second, and don't forget the driver who starts race 1, which will be Roloff Bruins, will be the driver who does the second leg in the second race, and we all have to know how they react. It's a wide circuit here, but anyone who's been around turns 1, 2 and 3 that interlock with each other know it's very, very complex. And where you want to start is at the front for all sorts of reasons. A, you're ahead of your rivals, and B, hopefully you're ahead of any conflict that may happen there. It's very easy to have contact in those first 3 corners. These cars are pretty robust, but down in 7th as Bruins will be starting this afternoon's race. You're more likely to have contact than if you're starting 1st, 2nd or 3rd. So just a little factor in his mind. 12-point advantage, but already it's going away a little bit. Look out for 9-10. Chris van der Drift. His JRM, one of the Chinese teams in the championship, been very impressive through the course of this season. And he's shared with Chao Li, and they've been a really, really tidy little combination.
Yeah, top of the drivers list there. Good 1st sector, good 3rd sector from van der Drift. Nice to get a good early time in, take you to the top of the charts.
And look out also for, well, there we go, 9-10, top of the charts. I'm also looking out for Van Gisbergen, the other driver with Van at the front of his name, and he's in the Triple 8, just had shot of it there, Triple 8 Engineering Mercedes, all silver, shared with Prince Jeffrey Ibrahim. 2 minutes 5.3. It shows how much quicker it is in that first session, doesn't it? They were in the 2 minute 6s, 2 minute 5s, no problem here. Already 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 drivers down to the Ferrari. Haven't seen so much that. T2 Motorsports, Rio Haryanto, former Grand Prix driver, the Indonesian. He's the last driver in 6th place, below 2 minutes 6. Temperatures might be climbing. Certainly the performance is climbing more. More of the pro drivers in Pro-Am drivers lineups in this 2nd session.
Quite a decent 1st sector time for Hamprecht, not the best, but fairly decent. Keeps him in the shout to register a good 1st quick lap. He's currently in 10th, but we'll see that change.
Well, he's got his first flying lap on the board, but I think he's probably softer on the tyre, more kind to the tyres than some of his rivals, and maybe the better lap will come this time around. But here's the key. Van Gisbergen, the Triple 8 Mercedes, clear track. How good's his 1st sector time? And as I said, it's slower than he managed last time around. He got the thing he needed, which to me was clear track, but must have made a slight trip up. Yeah, he's not just down by a few tenths in that 1st sector, so that is unfortunate. He worked the space for himself, but, well, he's 1.5 seconds down in the 1st sector, 2.5 seconds nearly down in the 2nd. That's not good.
Van der Drift's not going to improve on his best time. He was fairly pedestrian around that last lap, but perhaps plenty to come from him. I'm still looking at Hamprecht to see what he can do, and Van Gisbergen we ought to keep an eye on as well for sure, but that'll come in the next lap. Picariello, by the way, down in 10th for now.
Yeah, very few improvements. Van Gisbergen was, let's just wait and see around this lap. Who else? Imperatori's picked up the pace, 9.18. That Porsche Panther AES shares with Vutagon and Trafuvacak. His teammate is equal 3rd in the championship. Imperatori is 6th, but that means he can't be champion because wherever he finishes in the car, Trafuvacak will finish higher. Yeah. Trafuvacak, though, is, let's do the maths, he's 19 points down on MG Joy, on Roloff Bruins, who's the championship leader. 25 points for a win. There are 2 races, so you can score 50 points, but already being 19 points down does make it pretty difficult. Few cars in the pits. The 99 Darrell Young Mercedes up on jacks. Look as though fresh rubber's just been put on. Okay, now's your moment. 7 and a bit minutes remaining. And Young does need to pick up the pace. He's down in 19th overall for Craft Bamboo. He's quicker than that, but maybe he had his sight elapsed, felt what it was like on the older rubber, and he's going to see what he can do when the fresh rubber's on board. But the person who's moving best at the moment on the circuit, 9.10, is Chris van der Drift for JRM in their Porsche. Banged in the fastest 1st sector of anyone. Also right up there in the pits at the moment, but just emerging from the pits is the Lamborghini from Vincenzo Sospiri Racing. Frederick Schandorf, very impressive young Dane. 3rd quickest at the moment. He's only a 1/3 of a second down. At Absolute Racing, they've got 2 Audis here. Number 12 has taken pole for the 1st race, and number 13 with Frankie Chen Kong Fu is in 2nd place at the moment. So their Audis are looking very good around the circuit here in Shanghai.
Roloff Bruins, Bruce will be looking very carefully at his teammate, and what he'll be seeing is that Manuel Metzger, currently sitting in 14th and not looking desperately like he's going to improve upon that.
Right, I think we'll see. Well, but this is a much tighter session. In fact, he's only just over 3/4 of a second down, but unfortunately 13 places down.
And in the pit.
But I expect, look, we've got time for a fresh set of rubber to be put on that. I think we're going to see quite a lot of the runners coming in for that fresh set. We saw Darrell Young do it. They wanted to get the feel themselves, what the track was like as the temperatures changed.
Van der Drift just gone in the pit as well after putting a sterling sector one time, and he backed off a little bit in the second sector, but here he is in the pit, so settling for what he's got, I think.
Here comes the curveball. Look for the pace of ARN Racing. Yuta Kamimura has slotted in. He's down in 8th, but he's only just over half a second down. We're looking on screen at the moment of another new entry. This is Team iRace.win up to GT3, and their 66 car is being shared. It was Nan Lin, and now it's Heng Min. 2 Chinese racers. Great new livery for them. But I'm just going to keep an eye on the progress of Kamimura, because ARN Racing have been a bit up and down with their Porsche, but it looks as if he can get a really good final sector. We could have him slotting up in the top 3 or 4, so that's someone out of the championship mix who is another fly in the ointment, potentially. Waiting for the car to come to the final corner. I think it's down around the hairpin at the end of the back straight, but that could be something else that complicates it, makes it harder for Manuel Metzger in the second race. Another car between himself and the car he needs to catch up with, but that at the moment is only in 7th, so neither. Here comes the ARN Porsche over the start-finish line. Where does it go for Kamimura? Goes top by 0.15 of a second. That's been a real lookout. Certainly the best performance seen from Japanese racer Kamimura. Don't forget, though, we've got a few of the front runners coming in for fresh rubber. Just seen the car that was second, Chris van der Drift, come out of the pit lane. The pit lane wasn't busy during the first qualifying session. They all went out, did their sessions, came back in, and this time we're going to see the big hitters putting fresh rubber on. Are we going to have the 27 Ferrari getting towards the sharp end of the field? Well, it needs to, because at the moment it's down in 9th place. Marcos Gomez, the Brazilian racer, and certainly on our timing screens, more than half the runners have got outlap against
there's a lot to come.
So
yes.
The clock has 4 minutes remaining. Steve and I have no idea who's going to be top, but 2 minutes 5.155 seconds. Yuta Kamimura, Japanese racer in the ARN Racing Porsche, at the top of the charts. Will it be a Porsche on the top of this session? Very good chance, because we've got a lot of quick drivers in quick Porsches, but don't forget it was an Audi that was top of the charts at the end of the first qualifying session. Do not discount them all. Can Mercedes pick up the pace? I just want to say one name at this point: Alessio Picariello. That's all.
Fair enough.
Mention it now. Where is it? Good grief, he's almost in the top 10. He's in 11th place overall. And look for this driver, the 888 Mercedes. Looks good standing still, looks even better out on the circuit. But Shane van Gisbergen, he's made that potential change of tyres. He's down by 0.6 of a second, but look on the big screen, he's got space ahead of him. Why is he driving like this? It's because it's an outlap. Yeah,
you get the impression there's a lot to come, Bruce, because there's a lot of drivers on their outlap or in their first sector of a quick lap, and I think we're going to get some big times come tumbling in the next 3 minutes or so. All the big boys looking to impress in the next 3 minutes.
Fireworks, saving up. Almost not one driver going down the back straight in our shot is driving in a straight line. That tells you what you need to know. Look for the 912 car as well, the Porsche. Liu Yihong Li, he's just tucked in behind Chris van der Drift. Lights flashing on the Yuta Kamimura's Porsche, because he's on a different agenda. He was driving in a straight line. He's still trying to pick up the pace. Not been such a good lap for him. He hasn't got enough time to come in and get new rubber, but he's coming in anyhow. But surely he can't get fresh rubber on that car and get out and get a fly. Well, he can't. He can get in and get out before the checkered flag, but he can't start a flying lap with 2 minutes 25 seconds remaining. The fastest lap, 2 minutes and 5 seconds. That tells you what you need to go. 912, the Porsche needs to be towards the front end. Liu Yihong Li, there it goes, looks great. 6th fastest at the moment. He's 0.6 of a second down.
Championship leader, Roelof Bruin's teammate Manuel Metzger, still only 14th fastest, and he's on his outlap, and he needs dramatic improvements.
I have 2 minutes remaining in this session. I haven't quite gauged where he is. Is he going to be one of those people that's timed it with Indigo Racing to perfection, so he's the last car across the line?
Risky times.
Risky times. I mean, if he starts 14th tomorrow in our second race for this meeting, the final race of the year, that will be a disaster for Indigo Racing.
Yes.
And it must be said, well, looks like the SRO Motorsport McLaren has had its run, can't surely get back out onto the circuit. They were a little lackluster, down in 15th place overall, but 15th overall is only 1 second. Chris van der Drift, we said look for him. He came in, changed the rubber on the JRM Porsche number 910. He just put in, yes, you've guessed it, fastest first sector of anyone. The car that's the total outside hope in the championship. Not the championship leader is down in 14th. The championship 6th place car that can still take it is down in 16th overall.
This is very exciting. Picariello has just put in the best sector 2 time of the session so far, so watch for him to jump up from his current 11th position.
Chris van der Drift, having put in that brilliant first sector, is down by 1/4 of a second in the second sector. That's not going to help his chances at all. He's got to find 0.15 of a second. At the moment, that's what he's losing. Pole position will be very, very sweet for the JRM team here in China and for his teammate Chao Li. But right now, it's all eyes on Chris van der Drift. But he's not in the championship mix. That's for honour, not for championship honours.
Picariello's moved up, but he's just been dropped to 5th. Schandorf in 3rd now. Hamprecht in 6th. That's a moderately good lap from him. But I still think there's more to come, although there's only 24 seconds left on the clock. Final lap.
It's changing. Yi Hong Li has just moved up to 5th. That puts Hamprecht in 9-11, the championship challenge. The car in 2nd place down to 7th. What can Van Gisbergen do? Will he improve? No, he doesn't. But there were quick parts of that lap. If he hadn't been slow in the first sector, he would have improved. He can still do it. Now we've got, a big twitch from Van Gisbergen early in the lap. But as long as he can rectify that, checkered flag is out. And at the moment, it's Kamimura in the ARN Racing Porsche from Chris van der Drift and Frederick Schandorf in a Lamborghini. 4 makes of car in the top 4 positions, because Frankie Chen Kong Fu is coming through. But we've got to look to see who's putting the purple times on our screen. It's a chap called Chris van der Drift. We saw him just a minute ago in the 910 Porsche. It's good for 2nd place at the moment. He's picking up the pace yet more. Alessio Picariello, the 88 Mercedes, he has put in a very, very good first sector. Not as good as van der Drift, but it might move him up from 6th place. But a lot of these cars are cars that are going to be between the championship challengers. Who cares? It all adds to the excitement.
Look at the checkered flag alongside Manuel Metzger's name. He is not improving upon 14th, and that will have a lot to do with the destination of the Drivers' Championship.
It certainly will, and a couple of the cars behind him, Darrell Young in 16th and Wear on Tan in number 12 may also improve. Chris van der Drift carries on, pressing on in 9-10. Can he take a pole position? That'll be really, really good for the team. He's improved in that first sector. Look, we're dealing in hundredths of a second, 68 hundredths, sorry, thousandths of a second.
Yeah. Oh, slow sector 2 time.
Okay, sector 2, not so good, -5 seconds. So he's backed it off. So 2nd place is good. Anybody else improving? So Frederick Schandorf, 3rd at the moment. Car 13. Frankie Chen Kong Fu in 4th. Alessio Picariello did not improve. He did. He went up to 5th place, so he just moved ahead of Yi Hong Li. And again, traffic in front of some of the runners out on the circuit.
I don't think we're going to see significant improvements.
No, and Hamprecht in the 911, the driver who starts 2nd in the championship. Bear in mind, that would be a disaster normally to qualify only 8th, but your championship challenger is 6 places further back.
So we'll be looking very carefully at the midfield in the final race of the season, at the start at least.
Just looking for any late improvements, but the vast majority of the runners have taken the checkered flag. Car 13, one of the last across the finish line, but no improvement for Frankie Chen Kong Fu. Couldn't quite manage to move up any further, but quite a few cars have had times deleted, and as in the first session, it was our championship leader. Good spot there, Steve. Car number 97. Final corner, time deleted, turn 16. That was lap 6, so that is why there was no further improvement from Manuel Metzger. And in fact, I'll just double-check. That's still listed as that was the number of laps he did. So yes, so no improvement. So there it is, 0.15 of a second, similar margin to the first session, but instead of an Audi on top in first qualifying, we now have ARN Racing, Japanese Ferrari team, doing a fantastic job, and Yuta Kamimura top of the pile, ahead of Chris van der Drift, who came very close indeed. And just to show you how close it is, we're talking about the championship challenger, championship leader being Roloff Bruins, down in 14th position. He's still within a second. The top 15 cars covered by 1 second. That is how competitive it is. A lot of these combinations are Pro-Am driver lineups, and the pros got on board. And it might seem a disaster to be down in 10th. Well, it is, frankly. But you're less than a second off the pace. This is around the longest circuit we race on. So that is super, super competitive. Vincenzo Sospiri Racing, hats off to them as well. Really good job to qualify 3rd for Frederick Schandorf. And great, 5 makes of cars. Oh, no, sorry, it's 2 Porsches at the top. What am I talking about? Chris van der Drift is in a Porsche as well. But a real mix of cars, just how we like it in the championship. Ferrari, the only manufacturer that didn't show enormously well. Hub Auto Corsa, the better of their 2 entries. 3/4 of a second down, right ahead of the T2 Motorsports Ferrari as well. But ARN Racing, they have the bragging rights. But for the championship leading car, down in 14th, its closest challenger starting in 8th. That makes tomorrow's race very, very interesting.
We had a very exciting weekend coming up for us anyway, but this qualifying session has made both GT4 and GT3 even more exciting than it otherwise would have been. Can't wait for what's going to unfold in the next 24 hours or so.
Well, it would be a real story of ifs, buts, and when the final qualifying session of the year, the second of the two GT3 sessions started, you could see the body language of the drivers going to the pits. They wanted to get on with it. Only 15 minutes to go out and play, and one of the most important lessons after getting your tyres at the right moment to deliver a time was to make sure you didn't have other traffic in front of you. 4 new teams entered this weekend in the mix, but also you always need to know how good are their drivers. Do they give you space if you're coming through on a fast lap? You know, familiarity with other drivers, you learn how they perform. And for a lot of these drivers, it was another twist, another factor. Look, big wide circuit here at Shanghai, and one of the cars that ran off in the first session and the second had time stock was this, the 97 Solite Indigo Racing Mercedes, the championship leading car, the 910 Porsche from JRM, really pressing on in this session. Brilliant body language there from Chris van der Drift, just going out to the edge and not too far. He was pressing on, but it was Yuta Kamimura, the ARN Racing Porsche crew. They used to race Ferraris. They stepped across to Porsche that actually topped this Kiwi. He was a flying Kiwi, but not flying fast enough because Yuta Kamimura went better, took pole position. A car who could have challenged for it is the 888, the 888 Mercedes. Certainly Shane van Gisbergen was showing good form. He only ended up down in 9th position. That only put him just over half a second down on the ultimate pace, but the ultimate pace was set by this driver, Yuta Kamimura. Beautiful tight final line, very, very tidy out of the last corner. Tucked it in, the job was done. He will start the final race, the 2019 Blancpaing GT World Challenge Asia from pole position. A very good job done to top an incredibly competitive field here at Shanghai. The stage, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, is set. So there we have the championship positions going in to the final 2 races. 1 race this afternoon and the final tomorrow. 12 points to good, Rudolf Bruins. His teammate Manuel Metzger can't win the championship because they share a car. Manuel is down, as you can see, 36 points behind. But the big challenge is Hamprecht and Sathi and Thirakel starting ahead of them for both of the races. We will see who ends up on top, but this championship far from settled. But at the moment, Solite Indigo Racing, top of the pile, but looking just a little bit rattled. So thank you very much, and that's goodbye from Steve Dawson and from me, Bruce Jones.